There's a fairly large team at IBM working on taking Watson from the game show environment to solving real-world problems. The first industry that we've chosen to validate the use of this technology outside of game show is the healthcare industry. We're partnering with some of the largest and most well-recognized companies in both the provider and the payer side to validate the use of that system for patient diagnostics and treatment options, as well as connecting that provider system to the insurance companies to have insurance coverage pre-authorized and available very quickly when patients need it the most. That industry is really ripe for this type of technology. There's a large corpus of information available, and studies have shown that doctors, after a few years, reach a level of saturation in their ability to capture and retain the use of that information as they treat patients around the world. There are a lot of errors that the data indicates, both in the diagnosis and treatment side, that we think these types of tools can be used to enhance and improve. And I think one of the biggest problems that most healthcare providers have is that they have just too few doctors. There are too few trained specialists. One of the interesting applications of Watson that we're thinking about now is having it actually take the test to be certified as a doctor and see if we could actually certify Watson as a practicing physician using that type of information. And then taking Watson into more specialized practices like oncology, where that field is changing every day. Not only the diagnostic capabilities that we have, but also the treatment options frequently that come in the form of clinical trials and unproven technologies. We'd like to use Watson to help make those practices available sooner than we can today. We're trying to show our clients now that you don't need a 90-node supercomputer to have a working or functional Watson architecture or system there. The research team designed, we worked with the research team to design that system, and we supersized the computer that they used for the tournament just to make sure we had enough compute capacity to win. But we're finding now in some of these real-life applications, you don't need a supercomputer to do that. The other thing that's really fascinating about this is that the amount of information that goes into Watson in the form of a question and the amount of information that comes back out of Watson in the form of an answer, you can easily conceive as part of a smartphone application where you ask a question, that information goes to a compute resource somewhere else and then comes back in the form of an answer.
So Watson will live in the cloud.
Very, very much so. The architecture for the productization of Watson is very much cloud. I think so. I think the age of the typical Google type search is over. We've demonstrated that we have technology that makes it much easier to find and pinpoint a specific answer to a question and not force the end user to sort through pages and pages of possible answers and come to a decision on their own. I think that's what's at least as significant as the ability to come back with answers to questions, is the ability to take spoken language, understand exactly what was intended within the context of a question, and not force the users to structure their questions in a format that the computer or the program requires to get information back. I don't think he's met Siri yet, but that's a possibility.
Seriously speaking, Siri is a kind of a human interface for
exactly.
him.
Yeah, that's along the same vein of making the technology behind the system much more accessible to a broader range of folks. That's the consumability of these tools is really key, and making it accessible to a broad range of people, regardless of their technical expertise, is real important.
Right. So, what can we expect after Watson? What's Watson 2.0 going to do for us?
We have some ideas about enhancing the core technology. One is to give Watson potentially a sense of curiosity, so Watson knows what it knows and Watson knows what it doesn't know, and has a curiosity built in that would enable it to suggest or maybe even find on its own alternative sources of information that it could use to learn better, faster. Yeah, there are levels of abstraction and levels of subtlety, and in the ways that we communicate that will, the computers will never replicate, and, humans will never be replaced. So I'm looking forward to what we see next year and the next 10 years or 20 years,
Okay.
but I'm not optimistic that we'll replace humans anytime.